Hello everyone and welcome to Jam Academy. In this lesson, we just want to talk briefly about the concept of work and the concept of energy. As a matter of fact, the word work and the word energy has very precise meaning and implications in physics and engineering. Unlike the way we use the word in our daily lives, it has a very loose meaning. Now, when we talk about work, we mean any physical or mental activity, such as reading a book or riding a bicycle or throwing a ball. Now, in a daily conversation, it falls under the category of the meaning of the word work, but in physics, none of that definition really matters. This is actually why sometimes how we use our language affects our understanding in a physics classroom, so we have to really be careful about that. Now, work is a term in physics used to describe how energy is transferred mechanically from one object to another. Let me say that again. Work is a term used in physics to describe the mechanical transfer of energy from one system or from one object to another. But the question is, what is energy? Energy is a very complex term to define precisely, but the most basic definition that I'm going to give you is that energy is the ability to do work. Let me say that again. Energy is the ability of an object or system to do work on another object or system. And work is simply the mechanical transfer of energy from one object to another or from one system to another. Now, if you notice, I've used the term systems a lot. Now, there are different kinds of energy. Let me give you examples. You have kinetic energy, which simply is the energy an object has simply because it is moving. It is the energy of motion. The term kinetic simply means motion. So kinetic energy is the energy you have because if you are moving, then you have kinetic energy. Now, potential energy, remember the term potential. The term potential is used to mean a system has the potential to do work. For example, if I allow this pen, it falls. So if I hold this pen at this particular height, it has a potential to fall. It has a potential to do work. So this pen, simply because of its height, has potential energy. Let me give you another example. Let's assume that this is for the purpose of just illustration. Let's assume that this is the floor and the pen is now lying on the floor. Even though this is my hand, this is just for illustration purposes. Because this pen is actually lying on the ground, it doesn't have a potential to fall because it's already at its lowest point. Therefore, the potential energy, the gravitational potential energy of this pen is zero. So potential energy is the energy associated with the configuration of a system. Now, I'm using the word configuration. It's a big term. Now, configuration has to do with the relative positions of the various parts of the system with respect to each other. Let me give you an example. If you have a string or a rubber band and you pull the rubber band, what happens? It expands. If you let go, it contracts. When you pull the rubber band, the relative positions of the rubber band changes. That means that the rubber band has elastic potential energy. And we know it has elastic potential energy because when we let it go, it contracts. So potential energy means that the system has the potential to do work if let go. And potential energy is the energy associated with the configuration of the system. And when I use the word configuration, I mean the relative parts of the system, the relative positions of the system with respect to one another. You have thermal energy, which is also at the microscopic level a form of kinetic energy. It is essentially the sum total of the kinetic energy of the atoms that make up a given object. Remember, kinetic energy is the energy of motion. Potential energy is the energy due to the configuration of the system. There are different forms of potential energy that we will consider a little bit later. So before I go, I don't want to make this too long. The concept of work is used to describe the mechanical transfer of energy from one object to another. While the concept of energy really has to do with how work is defined, understand that energy is the ability of an object or a system to do work. So in the next lesson, we are going to talk about systems and how the structure of a system leads to different types of potential energy. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to the next lesson.